Hey everybody, this is Dr. William Clark, the host of Dr. William Clark Podcast and Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. Today, we are doing the CRI podcast. Uh, I guess this is the unofficial name of the podcast, Rob. I don't know if we've ever come up with a
What you used
name.
last time.
Yeah. Or today, we can name it the Entry Point Podcast randomly. And the reason why we can do that so willy-nilly is because we have a new program, a new business, a new opportunity that's become a part of the CRI family. That is Entry Point Staffing. So with that being said, to have this conversation brought Rob the Hebert back for another edition of this CRI podcast. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Rob, how are you?
Good. Coming off a restful Father's Day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, it seems like we had a good meal as well.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with the clam bake, right?
And no, you know what? I miss going out on our lunch dates.
Yep.
Yeah,
Tacos for sure.
for sure. That should be the official food of CRI. Just tacos, no argument.
Well, if this social venture went the way of a food truck instead of a staffing agency, it probably would have been a taco food truck.
For some reason, I don't know why. I remember we did talk about that with Scott, and I don't know if someone or I brought up a taco stand, but it was definitely a serious conversation that it has to be tacos. Like, just no
Well,
argument.
well, everybody loves tacos. I mean, tacos are just a form of a sandwich. Everyone loves some form of sandwich, so why not do
Yep.
it?
Why not?
But
Tacos is
we went the
delicious.
other way.
Hey, I might get tacos for lunch today. You keep talking about tacos. Oh man. But anyway, so besides us being fat in this podcast, obviously we love tacos. We want to talk about entry point staffing. So I guess here's the setup for the conversation, Rob. Before you and I ever came to CRI, um, Scott, our CEO, and Ann, Carr, our I don't know, was it former COO, vice president of operations, or she was everything to
She,
CRI.
she was, is, and probably always will be everything to CRI.
Yeah, so the official multi-tool of CRI, who
Yep.
is sadly retiring. But about 15 years ago, they had a vision of launching a staffing agency. And obviously, I guess most of Sears staff was not here for that conversation except Rob and Ann. And I guess legend has it, they got really close to doing it, and it just didn't happen. So fast forward to 2018, 2019, conversations start happening again. We engage in some serious planning for the better part of 2019 with some friends and colleagues from SVP, which has been really helpful and impactful to a
Social
lot of
venture
what we're doing.
partners.
Social venture partners, which actually they may be known to a number of our friends watch this podcast because they get around the state quite a bit.
They do.
And so because of that relationship, we engaged in some serious conversations about it to the point that we concluded 2019, jumped into 2020 with the prospect of raising startup funds to actually launch this baby. And by the time we submitted the grant application for startup funds, um, we were pretty confident that it was going to happen. And so as of late May, we got the formal announcement that with the partnership of Impact Fairfield County, we will be launching entry point staffing sometime this year. So that is the setup for the conversation. Did I miss anything? Anything you want to add to that context that will help
No,
folks?
I think it's a. I mean, I was intimately involved with the process up into all the way from when we first started talking to SVP and before, all the way up to getting word from the funder that we got the money. So when I say that it's a cool story on how we got here, I'm probably a little biased because I feel a little bit like it's very personal to me, but nonetheless, I'll say it was a really cool story. I mean, as part of our agency's strategic plan, this was the concept was that this would serve two purposes. First of all, it'd give us an opportunity to hold our clients longer and care for them better.
Yep.
Make sure they have, especially returning citizens, who make up a large part of our portfolio now, give us a better opportunity to make sure that they transition well home and into the workplace, because we'll have our hand on that process as often as possible. The other piece is it's a social venture for sure, so it give us the ability to generate some revenue to do, again, more for these clients longer. As you know, very few of our grants come with basic needs monies or any special funds where if somebody is going to lose their apartment, or if they need gear to go to work, or issues with their transportation, we just don't have the money to do it. It's not part of anything that we do. Some agencies have funding mechanisms, do a really good job of that. So for special needs, I'll cite CPA, the ones I cite the most because they got their act together really good. They always have that slush money, so it'd be good to have that as well. But so the concept was, as part of our strategic plan, one of the sort of pillars of it was that we were going to have the staffing agency, how we're going to go about doing it, and our friends at SVP, one in particular, Sylvia Shepard, who had some connections, lots of connections actually, put myself and Kate Kimberly, who some of you listening will know, at a meeting in Lowell, Massachusetts in the fall of 2019. This meeting was for the Alternative Staffing Alliance, which I didn't even know they existed.
I wanted to go so bad. I was so mad that I had a conflict, man. So mad.
So I learned a lot that day, for sure. Like, I didn't know what the ASA was.
Right.
I didn't really know that there was this whole industry of staffing agencies that were for highly barriered people and specialized demographics. I didn't know that was a thing. But anyway, at this meeting, for me, it was funny. I've been doing this, placing people with criminal histories for quite a while. And 2 jobs ago, a good friend of mine now, who was my supervisor then, June O'Leary, formerly of CMHA, and now she works for the city of New Britain. She comes over to my desk and throws an article on my desk about this place in Maine called Maine Works, and this woman, Margot Walsh, who is doing some fantastic stuff with helping people with criminal histories and substance abuse get back to work. I read the thing and I was instantly enamored with her, this lady, and the idea of what she was doing. But it was very far removed from my existence, so I kind of threw it, packed it away and kept it moving. Fast forward to this meeting at Lowell, Mass, who's sitting across the table from me, but one Margot Walsh. So I was both starstruck and feeling very small in the same moment. But she turned out to be a wonderful person. We ended up developing a relationship over time. I spent a week with her up in Portland, Maine in January. Is it okay to say I froze my ass off?
Yep, you took one for the team.
It was cold at 5 a.m. in Portland, Maine. It was frankly awful. I stood in the snow out by a fire with her crew, talking about how their day was going to be owned by them. And it was a really good experience. But so we ended up being able to write Margot into our grant application for Impact Fairfield County. Great group of people, by the way. And we won. We beat 54, I think it was, give or take a few other nonprofits, 2 of which were finalists as well, who had great presentations. In fact, I wasn't feeling so good that day about our chances because they were really, really good presentations from the other people, the other agencies. And when they told us that we had won, at the same moment, there was all of Scott and Ann's aspirations for 15 years and all of the work that we collectively put in, the Strive team and the research end, and myself and Angela Pellegrino Grant and Margot, and sort of the weight of the agency was, I felt like it was probably unreasonable to feel that way, but I did. I feel like the weight of the agency was kind of on my shoulders because it was part of our strategic plan that sort of needs all of its parts to function. I definitely had a hard time with my emotions. It was a good friend of mine, not a coworker of ours, Ina Mariano, was actually in my office in the corner when it was announced, and I told her that she could never report out how I looked or how I behaved after the call.
Yeah. So as I was saying, while you might have told Ina that, unfortunately, I already saw the video, and the video concluded with the "God bless" from you. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that was interesting.
I it was just yeah, it was amazing. It was when I tell you nerve wracking, like I don't care. We put in applications all the time. You put it in and you kind of walk away and get to the next one to keep it going. But this one had a lot of got a lot of legs. It's gonna hopefully be something that stays with us for the remainder of the life of the agency.
Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. There's a lot there.
So,
We don't need to.
so to talk about just you know, the emotion behind it for people that may be wondering, particularly nonprofits. So over my shoulder is a green book called Sustainable. That's my doctoral thesis, and in that book, I talk about how to sustain a faith-based and a nonprofit organization through earned income strategies and the infrastructure you need, the culture you need, the foundation you need. And so, what we've done has brought to life what I've talked about. And I've advised other clients over the years, other nonprofits, on how to do what we've done. To make that shift to a earned income business can be nerve-wracking for nonprofits, as you described, for a number of reasons. Because we all deal with the issue of restricted budgets, limited line items to spend money, and yet the needs of our clients continue to evolve and grow. And so there's a lot riding on, not just getting the grant, but also the next phase, which is like materializing it. And, for those who are watching, who just, who were trying to survive during COVID, I think y'all can relate to why Rob is saying what he's saying. Like it does, it matters. And the success of this can lead to a number of outcomes that we hope to realize sooner rather than later. And so, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it emotionally.
Mm-hmm. It's a very big deal. I mean, we have, just any given day when we talk about this, we have our friends in Maine. They have stake in this because this is the first time that they will have consulted another agency on how to do this. So there's credibility that they are going to get out of this for sure. SVP has invested their time and their money in us, right? So we don't want to let them down for sure. So that's two big players, and I haven't even talked about us. There's a lot of staff and a lot of clients that are looking forward. There's a lot of our friends, our brother and sister agencies out there that do similar work to us, that know that this is coming. They're sort of kind of gently let me know that I'm on the clock. I've had people in Hartford and up your way. When are you going to be in Hartford? I'm like, wait, I know.
We're coming. We're coming. Give us a minute or two.
Like, geez. And for the record, for those that are watching, Entry Point, by the nature of its funding, has to and will begin in Fairfield County. We're going to have deliverables, like any program that we're going to have to meet for the funder for a couple of years. But again, like any other program, once we've reached our deliverables and our goals, anything up above and beyond that is, that's for us to do what we want with. I don't suspect we're going to have an issue. It's just the nuts and bolts of it that we got to get together. We know the employers. We've been placing people with second chance employers since long before I or Dr. Clark came around.
Yep.
As some of you may or may not know watching this, our CEO, Scott Wilderman, started the Bridgeport Reentry Collaborative to do just this, help returning citizens back in 2007. So since then, we've been kind of building a corral of second chance employers. And for those employers that want to say they're second chance employers, but have little bit, some apprehension about any perceived risk, this will give them that opportunity as, career resources and entry point will be the employer of record. So there's that.
Man, there's so much to talk about, in terms of why this project. One of the things that you and I have synergy on is our joint belief that the programs we run should be integrated and braided together, not by force, but by strategy, right? So, I'm sure you can rattle off organizations, I can too, that are doing things and they're trying to force things to merge, but they really don't. The interesting thing about our work across the board, there's a whole lot of synergy. Can you just share your thoughts about how existing work that we're already engaged in, from your view, already integrates nicely into what we're planning to launch with Entry Point?
So, as you know, and maybe some of whoever's going to watch this may know, we do a lot of stuff, right? Agencies and funders that typically kind of do one thing and focus on one thing have criticized us a little bit for being a collection of programs. I think that was a term thrown about a couple of years ago, and we pushed back fairly hard against that because menus are great, right? You love looking at a menu. It's not a collection of recipes, it's a menu. It's the way it should be. We don't want to be all things to all people, but we know what our clients look like, right? They have, at least I'm not talking about the displaced workers who pretty much have their act together, but they just lost their job for no fault of their own. A business moved away or whatever. I'm not talking about those folks. I'm talking about our folks that are in our Jobs First Employment Services program. I'm talking about our Strive clients. I'm talking about our halfway house clients. I'm talking about our fatherhood clients. These folks come to us with multiple barriers. Why would we ever try to address one of them and expect a good outcome? That would be ridiculous. So, for example, our fatherhood program that we run through under Director Kenny Jackson, who's a great guy. When we started working in the halfway houses, we took the fatherhood program. It was Kenny's idea, actually. He wanted to work with the fathers at the halfway house. We decided to take a house and make it a fatherhood house, where everybody in there would be exposed to the fatherhood program should they want to require that. That was an instant, success. That particular house, and those of you watching that know about halfway houses, you walk in them and there's a little bit of you can almost feel friction in the air a little bit. You're not in a regular house. You're somewhere where there's some tension. About a month after starting the integration of the fatherhood program in there, it just went away. And that was, I think, a result of having like-minded people sharing space together. It kind of became a cohort model of halfway housing a little bit. And again, we moved on to then having Strive come in, and we're in the process of, I don't want to say we're there because I think that'd be premature, but we're in the process of trying to integrate Strive into the halfway house program that we run, and others across the state, frankly, with our partners. I'll tell you that I attended the first Strive cohort in Bridgeport, their graduation, when it was basically, that class was made up of basically all halfway house residents. And we knew we were onto something right away because these men and women looked different after. they found success in employment very soon after. Actually, so you know, Dr. Clark, I just spoke to Courtney, who basically, I referenced Courtney in the video presentation to Impact Fairfield County for the grant that we're kind of talking about. He's a supervisor now at LexCorp, and a graduate of Strive and a graduate of the Isaiah Halfway House program. So, yeah. So I would say that our friend Courtney, former resident of Isaiah Halfway Houses, he is what successful integration of programs looks like. So yeah, we're looking to do more and more and more of it as we go.
Yeah, and the thought came to my mind. We're not the Cheesecake Factory of the nonprofit world. Like that. That's not the goal. I think that's an interesting place to be in if you are a Cheesecake Factory of the nonprofit world. I do know some organizations that do that. And there seems to be this large menu of services that people can choose from, which is really interesting. But that's not necessarily us. We've definitely become much more strategic over the years about the programs we launch, including Entry Point. And I think this kind of leads to like some of the research we put into Entry Point. I'll kick off this part of the conversation and you jump into part of the research that went into Entry Point is what would be the appropriate feeder for our new business. And we concluded that our workforce development program, Strive, would be a worthy entry point, no pun intended, for this program. And I remember, I don't know if you were there for those conversations, but I remember pitching our Hartford WIOA program as the template for how this could work, where we go through this recruitment process, this training process, this employment placement process, this ongoing case management process, etc. And that could serve as kind of the template, the bar of determining, do we have what it takes to actually do something like this? What do you remember about that point in time?
Well, and part of the conversation, as I recall, was how are we different? Because at some point we're going to have to sell this to an employer, right?
Right.
So why are we not? And I'm just going to throw some. I'm not going to use names. ABC Employment Staffing Agency. Why are we not them? And how do we pitch that? How do we put controls and quality controls in place? That was a question. And as a result of those questions and others, we thought that if we had the program be fed by Strive, that'd be great. And then it kind of turned. What if Strive was a requirement and not just a place where we're going to snare some people? And it kind of just evolved. And the more we talked about it, the more it made sense that if we could tell employers we're different because all of our people have had 3 weeks of pre-employment training in a nationally recognized program, and they have case management with them to follow if there's any bumps in the road. That's different. Staffing agencies typically, again, I'm not saying anything that isn't known industry-wide, they're not touchy-feely, like at all. Come in, do your job, here's your check and leave. If the employer doesn't want you, then they don't want you. Not going to ask questions, you're just done. We don't want to do that. A lot of what we want to do is nurture people and care for them as they're trying to figure out what it is to be employees. As you know, and I don't know if anybody's watching this would know, our Strive graduates or Strive candidates, they don't typically have long, successful, robust work histories that they can lean on. A lot of their ability and abilities to be good employees comes from self-exploration as part of the program. A lot of folks don't realize coming out of incarceration that they know stuff. They know how to work. they know how things work. They get it. They've been in work crews. They've done any number of things in prison, and whether it be culinary or janitorial or cleaning, work crews, landscaping. Um, a lot of them do peer mentoring is something that goes on in prisons now. So, um, yeah, if that was the sell point that we decided to lean on, and that's what we wrote up in the grant, was that these folks would have to be graduates of Strive, and they would have case management to follow. And I remember, I'll tell a funny story. I know you want a good one. I'll bring you back in time. We had a gentleman who was moving his company into Bridgeport from New Jersey. For reasons we'll talk about right now. I'm going to leave that company unnamed, but they make a food item. So this gentleman came to tour our corporate headquarters at then 350 Fairfield Avenue, and we had a Strive cohort going on. So we showed him the job center, and we showed him the Strive class, and we showed him all the things that we do to produce, hopefully, job-ready people for employers. When he finished the tour, we went into the conference room, and he sat down and, what do you think? And he said, this is great. His one question for Dr. Clark and myself was, what does this cost? How much are you going to charge me for this? And like, we were sort of halfway through the strategic planning, and we knew we were going to do this staffing agency piece. And Dr. Clark and I just looked at each other like, we're on the right track. This is something that can happen. That was kind of affirmation moment for me, where I was sort of frankly wishy-washy with how it was going to go. And after that, it was full speed ahead for me. I haven't looked back.
Yeah, I remember that conversation, man. I remember, I don't know if you remember this. Months before that conversation, I asked you if you can pull together roughly 5 employers for me to have a conversation with to assess their interest in this concept.
And we had a solar company, we had a dairy company.
That's right.
A construction company.
That's right.
And the other 2 didn't show up.
Right. And really what I got out of that conversation was more of what they would need to do this, what they would need to pull this off. I don't know I know you remember this. We we interviewed not only a couple of companies to kind of get a sense of the market demand, and of course the story you mentioned. We also looked at possibly acquiring a staffing agency in place. And so for people watching, right, and I'm gonna share this on my platform, Rob, but the people who are watching and listen to this conversation, the reason why like this part of the conversation means so much is it's not simply, oh, we got the award for $100,000 to launch this company and everything was daisies and roses. Like, no, there were so many iterations to this conversation that you and I personally had conversations about. I'm sure you had conversations with Angela and Scott separately, that we ultimately landed where we are today. And it was all healthy. It was all necessary to kind of say, well, what about this idea? Try it out as fast as we could, either fail or succeed, or realize, no, that's a bad idea. Another concept that we've wrestled with, but I think it was tested in Strive and adapted to what you're talking about now, was what we call place-based case management, that differentiator that we're still working to perfect and master. And given Corona, that might look a little different these days. Like 2018, 2019 was it was so interesting to kind of go through that process, the business model options. I remember going back and forth with you about, look, man, I got these 3 different model options. I don't necessarily, I knew there was one that I preferred, and I think we did go with that one. But there were these 2 or 3 options I was looking at, and you didn't help me at all because you were just like ambivalent as much as I was. And then we brought in a friend to kind of give some insight, and she certainly brought clarity to, oh, y'all can do both. Well, how does that work? And it was all 3, and she broke it down. I'm like, and I remember taking these furious notes and realizing, oh yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. Let's do that. So I mean, it was just a lot that went into just where we are now, man.
Yeah. It was our friend Jane.
Yeah,
She's still a friend.
yeah,
Uh, she's actually going to be one of many people that try to help us find our director. Um, which is probably, I've said this 100 times to 100 people. When we find this person, they're going to have a lot of work to do. They're going to have a lot of pressure on them, but there'll be no human being, minus maybe a president, that's going to have more support than this person. The whole agency is going to give them whatever they want because it's
yep.
important. But it's, I don't know if you want to talk about that person, um, but we are hiring for or looking to hire the director of entry point staffing, and I'm pretty good, I think, at hiring people. I haven't had many, if any, at all, go bad on me. Knock on wood. Um, but I think it's because I know what I'm looking for ahead of time, like in concept at least. Um, um, like when we hired our director for our halfway houses, I knew exactly what I needed, like 100%. And and I didn't think I was going to find it. And the last person I interviewed, I think I interviewed like 17 people. The last one, and the minute I laid my eyes on her, I said, "This is it." Um,
I remember the conversation well.
oh, it was. I couldn't. There's no way that was going to fail. She is a awesome person, and so glad that I didn't settle. But
Yeah, shout out to Kim.
Kim Harris, yeah, Miss Kim
Hmm.
L. Harris, Director of Residential Services for Career Resources. She's a wonderful person,
Yep.
and has become a good friend. But this person, this Director for Entry Point Staffing, I know first and foremost they got to be socially conscious. They got to
Hmm.
care. Um, I say all the time that one of the big things that makes us different is that we don't have to try to care. It's not something we think about. It's inherent in who we are. Um, I got stories about that I could share, but they're maybe not related, so I'll leave it alone. They got to care first of all, first and foremost. Um, but for this to work, they got to have some business acumen as well. They got to understand dollars and cents. Um, Not that we don't in the nonprofit world, but you know, we're nonprofit, right? All we got to do is try to not lose money, um, which is easier said than done sometimes. But they got to be a leader of people because if this goes well and it goes the way it should, this will grow. Um, they gotta they gotta know when to ask for help, and we got that preloaded. Our friend Margaret Walsh, we've hired her as a consultant, so she's there. Um, but I just don't know. It's an interesting blend that's gonna um, make up this person, and I've never met anybody, and our networks are pretty large, as I think you would agree, Dr. Clark. Um, and for me to say that I don't have anybody in my network that reminds me of someone that could do this, it's kind of nerve wracking, frankly. Like I'm on the clock. I have a closing date of June 30th on um, for this, and we do have some good people to interview, and I don't know them well enough to say, they're obviously qualified because we're going to be interviewing them, but I've just never had a situation where I didn't know for sure, like who fits that bill, somebody like that. So if you know anyone that can fit that bill, Hebrew at careerresources.org, let me know.
So let's do this. Let's like switch gears to talk about this person. So um I'm gonna walk you through a couple of things, concepts that are in my book, Sustainable Rob, for you to respond to. But before I get to that, in your words, and then I'll answer this question too. Describe the culture of CRI. What would this person be getting themselves into cultural wise if they decide to come on board and lead this effort?
Um, Again, I got to go back to, like doctors and nurses, their first rules do no harm. Um, I think I think we start there. I mean, I think our culture is of um, a lot of respect for where the our clients are. Um, I've been around a lot of people and a lot of agencies, and um, there's always a certain degree of certain portion of the agency or a group that can still be a little callous and not care all the time. That's not us. Um, Everybody from our halfway houses to our Strive staff to our AJC staff, um, we're just willing to do so much for our people and give of ourselves at a level I haven't seen before in other agencies. Not to say our partners and friends aren't great, but I'm amazed all the time. I don't know if you saw one of our residents at our halfway house did a video with our residents and our employees over there um, during the pandemic. Well, I guess we're still in the pandemic, but when it was rather bad over there. Um, and I don't know. It struck me as interesting that they were able to take um, a really awful situation and kind of make it a little bit fun. Um, yeah, CRI is I would say it's a culture of caring. First of all, um, not being out for yourself. Um, as far as what it's like to work for CRI, you're always going to have support. I know you support your team like crazy. I know you stay up at night thinking about ways to support them and make sure that they feel valued and compensated and cared for. Um, I know during the pandemic, I have barely slept because I worried about my halfway house staff, almost like their family. I know, and that comes from Scott. That comes from our boss. He takes the job home with him every day. Not to say that's healthy, but just who we are. And if you come on board with us, it is more like family than other places for sure.
Yeah, I can't disagree with none of that. I mean, I know you, I, and Scott. Um, we have our own stories about why we care so much about clients, and those stories intersect um, into the culture he's already established. But I think, you know, your story and my story, and for whatever reasons we have our stories, they align with the bottom line. You care about the clients first. Um, I think if there's anything that's a deal breaker, do something wrong to our clients or don't help them. That breaks all deals. Um,
Mhm.
so I'll add this to the culture, and I'm sure there's so much more to talk about, but you got to come work for us to kind of get a sense of the full scope. Um, I will say that this is a place where you can't stay still or stand pat. Okay.
No.
Now, the funny thing is, I can say that to you. I can say this to Scott, and you guys like live out the essence of that statement. He doesn't stay still at all. Like he's always pushing the envelope. You do, I do, and I think we go as far as we can. And I think that this position that we're talking about, entry point director, this is definitely a role where you need to run hard, fast, in as many directions as you can to get the job done and know that you can do it. Like there's no constraint on your creativity and innovation. Um, and I feel that way in my current job. I can't even imagine how this new person will be able to live that out in this job where expanded creativity is welcomed. I don't know if
Needed.
you want to jump in. Needed. Yeah.
So in our own ways, right? I think we're all pretty smart people. This person is going to be leaning on. So her team is going to be Strive, Fatherhood, Isaiah and Mary Magdalene houses,
Reentry.
business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so she's going to have all these really smart, creative people to lean on. And hopefully this person brings her own or his own degree of sort of business savvy and creativity to the table. I fully expect when we get this person on board, the first thing she does, I keep saying she, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking it's, I don't know. I don't know. And maybe you know what it is. This is going to be where it's a baby, it's being born, it's nurturing. Maybe that's in my head. But when this person comes on board, one of the very first things they're going to do is sit with you and Kim and Kenny and Ernie and others to both get a feel of what it is to be at CRI, get reassured that you all are going to be there to support them, and just talk through strategy. We already have employers. We're starting small. We're not going to try to have 100 people working right away with 50 employers. That's not going to be a winning formula. We're going to have a few employers. We're going to have like 5 to 10 clients. Then here's the other piece. What does a client mean? Now all of a sudden client means employer. So we're going to have two kinds of clients in the same boat. So we're going to have to talk about some language around that. But, we have the building blocks in our hands. So it's just getting the mechanism in place. But yeah, I look forward to, mark my words, I'm going to walk into a room one day and you're going to be sitting there with Kenny and Kim and this person. And I'm going to say, this was the day I was waiting for. I want to be present in this meeting. And then I'm glad that we're here. Yeah.
Maybe you can order some tacos on that special day
I will do that.
from Mexico specifically.
We're going to have a meeting in Stanford, I guess, right?
You might as well. So we got about 10 minutes to go. There are three things that I introduce in my book, Sustainable, when an organization, a nonprofit organization or faith-based institution decides to do what we do. I'm gonna share these three things, and I want you to respond to them one by one. So here are the three things. An organization must have strong and sound leadership. The organization must welcome, introduce, and champion innovation. And the organization must have a laser focus on renewable resources, meaning money that continues to turn over and over and over again. So let's start from the very beginning. When we talk about this person coming in, Rob, to Entry Point and taking on this role, filling this key spot that could lead to further diversification of our revenue, what type of leadership do you want this person to display? What leadership they must possess in this role?
No fear at all. Is this like word association, or do you want me to expand?
Go ahead. You can take as long as you want.
Can't be afraid. They can't be afraid. They have to trust. They have to trust that that is the right thing to do, what we're doing, and they can't be scared at all. They got to be able to walk in a room and own it. I think in our own rights, we've all in our circles have found a way to do that. I know when I fell into the role that I'm a long way from where I started. But when I fell into the role that I initially fell into, I was filling the shoes of one of the greatest people I've ever known.
But shout him out. Shout him out. He's probably going to watch this later on.
Former chairman of the Bridgeport Reentry Collaborative and former director for business relations, Dan Braccio. Um, Anybody who knows him knows that there's not a more quality individual that walks the earth, period. Um, and there's no reason for me to say it except for it's true. I was intimidated to no end, to be, I guess I could have looked at it as I should have been honored to follow him, but that wasn't what I felt. I felt intimidated and I felt small. I felt very small, and I hadn't felt small in my life before, so I didn't know how to manage that. Um, a very good friend of mine, I took counsel from Sue Gunderman. I told her that I was managing poorly the feeling of being small and inadequate. And she told me, well, that's because you're trying to be Dan Braccio. And I said, well, isn't that what I'm expected to do? And she goes, no, you can't be him, but you can be you. And it's a pretty simple thing to say to somebody, right? It's not like earth shattering or anything, but she was right. And I just need to be the best version of me. And it's funny, like that day, turned the switch and fixed everything. So this person doesn't have to be Scott. This person doesn't have to be me. They got to be the best version of themselves and fearless. Because you can't do what we need to do with fear. You got to just throw it at the wall and go 100 miles an hour, and you'll be fine. Because if we pick you, you're qualified.
So let me add to that leadership piece. I think also, which I think that was a great story you shared. This person has to be okay influencing decisions in multiple arenas, because there's the feeder element of the business, which is where I come in.
Yep.
But this person also has to, and Kenny and Kim as well. But there's the closing element, the closer within them has to come out to lead employers to a decision that makes sense. And hopefully that decision is choosing Entry Point as a solution for their staffing needs. That is going to be an interesting journey, but it's doable because we've done the research to know that it's doable. Our partners and consultants have proven that it's doable. So it's doable. Here's the second one, Rob. Innovation. Obviously, we've talked about the culture of CRI. Take us into the mindset this person has to have to be innovative, creative, boundaryless rather, with their work.
So I would say that this is a new thing for Connecticut, but it's not a new thing. So we know it can be done. We have agencies across the country that have done this work for over a decade. It's been successful. It's been sustainable. It's been hard, but I don't see value in doing easy things all the time. Easy things don't give you a lot of reward. So it's not new, but from what I've seen, and I think what you've seen in your research, I think there's a lot of room for improvements. I think there are ways that some of the processes can be automated to a degree. I think other agencies across the country, and we've mentioned the ASA, Alternative Staffing Alliance. I've looked at some of the ways that some of the members do things, and some of them still lean on the manual processes for payroll and such. I think there's better ways to do it. I don't want to be the guy to figure that out, frankly. So I would expect this person to look at ways to streamline processes. The nonprofit world typically is skinny administratively. So the more that that's how it is. My wife often asks me, well, Why don't you have an assistant or something that can do that? Like, yeah, our CEO doesn't really even have an assistant.
Mrs. Hebert, she has no idea.
Yeah, she doesn't. But
Oh man.
but the more things that this individual can do to automate processes, I think the more they'll be able to do because it'll expand their bandwidth. And again, come in here and tell me what you need. Why is this part of the business, this part of your day, why does it suck? Let's figure out a way to make it not suck.
But let's be honest, Rob. So let's be honest, right? Most companies and a large number of nonprofits don't have that culture where folks can come in and make strong suggestions and it be implemented. I have told my staff over the years that it is their job to lead me to a decision they want me to make. If you feel that strongly about something, prove your case, convince me, done. Right? Other than that, it's not going to get done, but it's in your hands, right? But I know I do that. I know you do that. Scott does that, right? And this new person is going to have that bandwidth. And so that could be really hard for people to accept what you just said.
Mhm.
Like, can I really convince you guys to, heck yeah, we're doing a staffing agency. It's evidence. the Isaiah's evidence of this stuff. Place-based case management through Strive is evidence of this stuff. Strive online. Like, I can keep going. Like,
Yeah,
this is what we do.
yeah. Well, here's the thing. I mean, if I knew everything, if I knew how to run this staffing agency, if I knew the best processes and best mechanisms for billing and marketing and training and retention, well, I wouldn't be talking to you now. I'd have my business and I would have been running it for years. I don't know. Here's the thing. Can't be afraid to say I don't know. I don't know. I did my research. You did research. We've talked to consultants. We've got everything in line. We've performed a winning proposal. We have businesses and clients and partners ready to help us. I still don't know. I didn't do it. So if this person comes to me with ideas, they're going to be listened to and they're likely going to be acted upon. I remember I come from law enforcement, and I remember a certain town, a certain major, me having a conversation with him about why can't we have a fourth shift? I'd like to come in at 10 o'clock and work till 6 in the morning. It'll give me, I used to do a lot of DUI and narcotics interdiction, and an extra hour, at between 10 and 11 is more valuable than the between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. So back me up, give me an extra hour in the evening to do my work. No. Well, why not? Because we've never done that. That was the answer. That was the answer, because we've never done that. And I said in that moment, I was already looking for my next assignment, because that's just ridiculous. But we're the opposite of that story.
I rarely hear no, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to be funny. Like it's not like we're a willy-nilly culture. That's not what I'm saying. I think that we really focus on trying new things. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, you learn to move on.
Yep.
And I think you and I can talk about that forever. And I know this next topic we can talk about forever, but I know you got to go. The last leg of being of a sustainable organization is renewable resources. We have had numerous conversations about this. I write extensively about this in articles and books. This staffing agency is another lane of renewable revenue. I don't know what thoughts you want to share about that, but that is the third leg there.
So here's the unfortunate story. We're talking about business right now, and there is a business component. But the reality is, this is, for me, a tool to strike at the institution of mass incarceration. That's what this is. This is a tool to break the cycle. This is a tool to drive down recidivism. This is a tool to reunite and sustain families. This is a tool to break down the stigma of a criminal history. anybody who knows me and knows the work that I do in and around the state about reentry knows that I feel like, incarceration, mass incarceration, and recidivism is really the evidence of the devil on earth. To know these folks that have been incarcerated and to really know the depth of damage that it's done to their communities and their families, is to know the real tragedy that is going on right now. It's been going on for a long time, for sure. Been going on since the mid '90s and the major crime bill that was passed then that put so many men and women of minority men and women in jail for a long time, all across the country. And again, if we can care for our folks longer, ensure their transition, make them palatable to more employers, then maybe, just maybe, at least in Connecticut, in our own way, we can help to drive down those awful numbers that we see. But that's not what you were asking me. I say all that to say that I hope I can find a way to do enough damage to the cycle of incarceration that we are forced to look at a different demographic one day because there's just not enough people to help. That's a really lofty goal. And, I'm not 22 years old, straight out of college thinking I'm going to save the world. But if you don't have really lofty goals and high aspirations, then what's the point? There'll always be somebody to help. There's always going to be someone on the bottom rung of society. That's just how it goes. And we'll always be there for that person, whether they be a formerly incarcerated man or woman, or somebody with a disability, or somebody who is new to this country, or somebody who has any number of barriers. I fully believe that Career Resources is always going to be that tool, that instrument to intervene and make their life better. So it is sustainable because there's always that person to help, but the model may have to change someday because we do so well at it. That's what I hope.
So for people wondering how those dots connect to what you're saying and renewable resources, renewable resources, as I talk about in the book, is finding revenue that comes in over and over and over again. And to fight the problems that we're targeting is not only a tool against mass incarceration and the injustices of the system, but also at our core, we're a workforce development agency. And to help people find, maintain jobs, get ready for jobs, and all the innovation that goes into that, we need money. There's an old adage that says money is a defense. And when you run out of money, you run out of opportunities to help as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. And so we've been blessed, if I'm honest, particularly during Corona, pre-Corona, to have multiple revenue streams within our company. Yep. This adds to it, but there's this money is a result of doing good work, right? And a sustainable organization doesn't do or run businesses just to make money. It's a part of who we are at our core. And so Entry Point, just like Isaiah and Strive, YCA, the AJCs, and everything else we do, they're revenue generators, but it's all about this focus of this mission that continues to renew over and over and over again. So Rob, this wraps up our time, and I know we shared a ton of good information, but if someone feels like they are interested, if they feel like they're qualified, if they feel like they want to be a part of our culture, part of our team, part of our company, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you to notify you of their candidacy?
Well, regarding any of the stuff that falls under my umbrella, I can be emailed at Hebert, Hebert, at careerresources.org. Anybody that knows Dr. Clark here can reach me via him. If you have a general inquiry about open positions, again, one of the things that we're working on, part of our strategic plan, is doing a better job with the recruitment process, because that's frankly a weakness currently. But you can send a letter of inquiry or an email to Arbello, Arbelo, Arbello at careerresources.org. That's Carmen Arbello. She is our HR director, and she has an up-to-date list of positions right now. I'll tell you, we're looking for a Strive trainer / case manager.
No, we're looking for two of them. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm looking for two people to hire.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Believe I sent you an interesting individual today.
Yep.
We are looking for a career agent in our business services unit, which is part of the American Job Center. That unit, interacts directly with our area employers. We are looking for 2 case managers at our residential facilities. And we're always looking for per diem monitors at all of our houses. Pretty much that's a unfortunate, but yet required part of that type of business, where we're always sort of hiring for that. I don't know. Oh, very exciting news. We very well may be looking to expand our fatherhood program. Our friends at the Department of Social Services have applied for, don't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's FIRE, F-I-R-E. You probably know, Dr. Clark. So they're applying for federal money to expand all 5 of their current sites, which for Resources in Bridgeport is one of them. So we're looking to, if the state wins that money, we'll be looking to hire 2 full-time case managers in our fatherhood program to expand services there across Fairfield County. I don't know the titles, but our disability Everybody Works office is looking to hire 2 people. Are extremely talented and unfortunately outgoing Caitlin Mongillo needs to be replaced at some point. She's leaving to go to work for the state. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I guess I'll go with our board chairs. The net is that there's a lot of opportunity at Career Resources, and we're expanding as fast as possible, but in a smart, deliberate way. I think 3 years ago, before Waterbury, we were maybe 50 employees ish.
Wow, that yeah. Just about.
Now, so we added all the Waterbury staff. We've expanded Strive. We added re-added Fatherhood because it was gone for a while.
And Isaiah, we're about 200 now.
Yeah, maybe 160 something. But the fact is, we've tripled, I believe, in 3 years, and we're just going for more. But again, it's all intentional. It's all connected. It's not. It's not what it may seem from the outside. It's not loosey-goosey or anything like that. It is very directed. It's very strategic. And if you're interested in coming on board, give us a shout.
Yeah, we got a lot of positions. So, yeah. But we definitely want to focus on entry point, and hopefully we find that right person. This is a good conversation, Rob. This hour went by really, really fast, man.
Always does.
Yep. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.